Hello, you are listening to Talk to Seattle, and I am Jason Rigdon. On this episode, we have Chelsea Restad from the Puget Sound Socialist Party. But first, I'd like to explain something. As we start doing interviews again, I just want you to know that I am not excluding conservative voices. As a matter of fact, in the last few weeks, I spent a good amount of time inviting conservatives onto the show. I really want this show to have a wide variety of political opinions on it. While I myself am quite open about my personal political beliefs, I really strive to create a space that is comfortable for my guests. I want them to be able to talk and express themselves and explain their ideas. My interviews are not confrontational. I'm not here to debate people. That's not my role. There are plenty of other people doing that. Just turn on CNN or Fox News and you'll see an endless parade of people spending hours and hours arguing without saying anything of substance. The world does not need any more of that. I'm here to listen to my guests, and my questions help facilitate that. I don't do gotcha questions. I do open-ended questions meant to get my guests talking. And I think I've done a good job of that. I doubt you can find a single guest of the show who regrets coming on. I doubt you can find a single one who thinks I was unfair in my questions or that I was out to get them. So I'm a little surprised by how few conservatives have even responded to my interview requests. Some have even been outright hostile to the very idea of coming onto this show. I'm not really sure why that is. I worry that they've been coddled by conservative media and that they lack the fortitude to have a conversation anywhere else. Leaving their safe space seems to genuinely frighten some of them. It's almost as if they're afraid to explain their ideas outside of the echo chamber of conservative media. But that's just a theory of mine. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Either way, if you are a conservative candidate, or if you represent a conservative organization, and you're brave enough to come on this show and explain your ideas, my DMs are always open, and you can always send me an email. In the meantime, take a listen to my interview with the Puget Sound Socialist Party. I would like to note that they did not hesitate to schedule an interview, and the representative, as you will hear, was unafraid to explain their ideas.
So my name is Chelsea Restad, and I am the chair of the Puget Sound Socialist Party.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Could you tell me a little bit about the party and what makes it special?
So we are a chartered local of the Socialist Party USA, which is the national level organization. There are various locals throughout the country that they could represent a jurisdiction as small as a city, or it could be a whole state. For us, our jurisdiction includes a few different counties in the larger Puget Sound area, like Thurston, Pierce, King, Snohomish, Mason, Kitsap, and Island. So oftentimes what could happen, if more people were to join the party in a certain area, and then if it warranted its own local, then maybe that would become its own newly chartered local just for that region. But for the time being, we have members that are scattered throughout all of those different regions. So it covers all of those in one. And we were chartered in 2017. And so with the idea behind that basically being, we want to give people in Washington state who do not feel represented or truly advocated for as working class people an independent socialist option of an actual party in Washington. And the way Washington handles parties is interesting because it's not really an official thing per se. You don't have to go and sign up in a registry somewhere. You can just kind of say you're a party and then your organization handles it how you will. If you run as a candidate and it's a partisan position, you can just say prefer such and such party without actually being a member of that party. So, as opposed to other states or areas where you may actually be required to be a member of the party before saying, I'm running as a member of, or I prefer this party. But we are a recognized local of the Socialist Party and have been running our own candidates for a few years now. So engaging at the electoral level, but also just really wanting to have a focus on supporting our communities and being present, whether that means local activism, looking for causes that could use a boost of support or signal boost, getting involved on a personal level with the communities that we live in. So those are important too. We're also a multi-tendency party, which means that we're not going to exclude you if you are more of leaning towards one tendency than another. So it's technically a democratic socialist party, but if you identify with another tendency, that's okay. You can still join. You can also dual card with other organizations like DSA or the IWW or something like that. And lots of members do. So it can look like lots of different things, and our members have lots of different backgrounds. And we all just kind of focus on the shared values that we really want the Socialist Party to encompass.
And why not do this work within the Democratic Party?
I think that, at least in my experience, there is a unifying theme of disillusionment with the Democrats, which for a lot of people, and I know for me, I had that realization in 2016. A lot of left-leaning people who were trying to work through the Democratic Party may have found themselves supporting Bernie Sanders and then realized, well, that's not going to happen. The DNC is not going to allow it. They would rather lose with a right-leaning candidate than win with somebody who, identifies as a socialist, but ideologically is more of a mild social democrat, not even advocating absolutely radical overhaul or revolution or anything of that nature, just kind of trying to get the United States up to speed with things that the rest of the industrialized world has been doing for years. When you talk about things like universal health care or guaranteed maternity leave, maybe a shortened work week, these are not uncommon, but in the United States, that's considered outrageous. And Republicans call you a commie for talking about it, and the Democrats do too. They have really vilified the identities that are associated with the left. If you're called a socialist or you're called a communist or something, they use that as an insult across the board. So having that realization that that Democrats act that way and do those things and collude with Republicans to ensure that somebody running under the banner of a Democrat while trying to be a socialist can never get their foot in the door, that's intentional. They are operating in tandem as a capitalist duopoly while sort of play fighting and engaging in this pageantry to make it look like they are mortal enemies. But they often vote the same way. They all get paid and bribed by the same people, by the lobbyists and everyone that ensures that these, quote, public servants become millionaires by accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry, from the military industrial complex, across the board. It's not, different. Any differences you could find, the discrepancies are minimal at best. So when you have that realization and you find why am I spending so much time fighting my own party rather than, being supported in my values in this fight? Why is that a thing? Because ideologically, liberalism is a right-wing ideology. It's not geared towards anything that would be considered left anywhere else in the world, not even close. But that the way it's been framed in this country has been, there's been a rightward shift over the past few decades to make you think that people that would be considered pretty right-wing anywhere else, we're kind of moderate, even left-leaning. And it's just not, realistic. And we can see with the way that those policies have played out for the average working class person, we have not seen anything like a federal minimum wage being advanced to a level that would make sense over the past couple of decades to keep pace with the cost of living. So people can't even have a living wage, let alone a thriving wage. And the whole concept of the wage system in the first place is not something that's ever questioned. Whereas socialists should say we should abolish the wage system because workers should own the means of production. That's the heart of what socialism really means. But Democrats have really co-opted that word and that movement so that they can absorb it and neutralize it within their party and say, oh yeah, you can be a Democrat and be a socialist. And what that means is voting for this guy who's going to vote for this war and increase your city's police budget, or, just more of the same status quo, which is really harmful, not just to, all working class people, but very disproportionately harmful to women, to minorities, to people who are disabled, people who are not neurotypical. So it's like we don't, and when you look at the impending catastrophe of climate change, when you look at what's happening right now, where we're witnessing like this slow motion collapse of late stage capitalism, the way it's been mired in traditional policing, enforcing it through sheer brutality on people, and how those we have so many millions across the country unemployed right now who, it's breaking under its own weight, and they're recognizing that we're not going to sit here and not be supported by a government that's killing us, and do nothing anymore. The Democrats' solutions have really fallen short, and I believe people, they're looking for an alternative. Even the people who they might identify as conservative or Republican, they may be going about it a different way, but they can't be happy with this. They lash out at the wrong people, but they know they've been given a raw deal. And I think a lot of Democrats, if they were, truly, once I decided to be honest with myself, I'm like, there's no way forward for me here. There's not even a recognition of a problem. We're constantly told, no, you're the problem for thinking there's an issue with any of this. And it's really very victim blaming, very gaslighting. People are tired of that, and they're smarter than that. So we're seeing this series of uprisings happening. And it's kind of scary, but also kind of encouraging to see this moment where the material conditions have come together to enable something like that to happen.
So this question is going to be a little bit difficult, but I imagine you probably have to answer it frequently. Socialist has kind of been a demonized term. So when people come up to you and they ask you, well, what does it really mean? How do you respond to them?
So, I ran in 2017 for Tumwater City Council, and I did so as a member of the Socialist Party, openly as a socialist, and I didn't shy away from that word. What I found is that when you really own it and you take the time to share with people what that means to you, not just, a dictionary by the numbers that, yes, owns and means of protection, but breaking down what that would mean for someone's regular life, they don't pull away from it, and they're not recoiling in horror. That's just what the Democrats told me. They said, oh no, whatever you do, don't say the S word because I support you, but that's too scary for people. And I'm just, that when I went out to candidate forums and events and parades and everything I could possibly find in that span of time when I was running, I just took the time to try to explain to people. I'm just a person who wants workers to be treated like humans. My dad was suffering from cancer at that time. He had stage 4 medullary thyroid cancer, and it was bankrupting my family because we live in a world that treats patients like profit centers, and it's grotesque and it's sick. And so I wanted to humanize that background and let people know that there's a better way. There's no reason it has to be like this. And the solutions aren't untested. They're not outrageous. They're things that are already happening and can happen. And for the rest of that to come into the picture, to complete the socialist program of true ownership, workers having democratic control over their workplaces would be the dream. But also to bring in the parts of it that would demonstrably, quantifiably improve people's lives, having the universal health care, having free college tuition. These are important things that affect pretty much everyone who has ever thought about having a higher education, who's ever had a chronic illness, and that can happen to anybody. So just treating people like grown-ups and trying to really work through the Western propaganda and not, again, don't shy away from the idea of socialism, but embrace it and really try to help them understand the differences between socialism, social democracy, capitalism, and how that, what we have here is it's sheer unadulterated capitalism, but it can be better. There's other ways to move forward from that, breaking it down so that people understand there's a gradient. It's not just Democrats or Republicans, when really that's one choice. It's all capitalist no matter what. That there's a whole unexplored left spectrum for people to consider and learn more about. I think it's exciting and it's fun for people to really learn the truth about what's possible.
Yeah, it seems like socialism is more popular now than ever before in my lifetime, and it's mostly because of the massive failures of capitalism.
Absolutely. People just can't help but look for an answer, even if, sometimes one person might fixate on, I'm drowning in student debt, or someone might wonder, why do I have to work 60 hours a week for a boss who makes 90% of the profits? And so they're drawing these conclusions kind of independently. And when you finally have that aha moment that all of these things are linked to one underlying systemic cause, that is capitalism, that produces, all of the underlying issues with white supremacy, with police brutality, with financial inequality, with with workplace issues where you don't have a say in how your work is done and how you're compensated, where a CEO can make $1 billion in a year, and we live in a culture that worships that person and thinks that they pulled up their bootstraps and won the meritocracy. And we have to really work on changing that narrative and helping people to realize that if you were, most of us were given a raw deal at some point or another. And certainly some people had less of an advantage than others because of the circumstances of their birth or where they grew up and how much money their family did or didn't have. But even those that were born into more privilege, again, all it takes is one bad event. If you get a medical diagnosis or something of that nature, and all of your life savings that you worked so hard for can be erased. And then where's the safety net? Where's the guarantee for what is, the likelihood of achieving that American dream? It's only for people like the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world that our media works overtime to portray as, oh, they're so cool. They're these tech bros that are geniuses, and you must never question them. You should worship them. You can't get to that point without exploiting people. It's not possible. And there's nothing particularly extraordinary or special about being born rich and connected. That's not a hallmark of genius. And likewise, you're not an undeserving or poor or less intelligent person if you fall on hard times, or if you had less opportunities than others. Then that's kind of, breaking through that is going to be one of the biggest challenges for a culture that we have in this country.
So locally, there's a whole bunch of different socialist organizations. What makes your organization different?
So I think that, for me, what originally drew me to the Socialist Party and feeling like it could be a good fit for me was seeing the 2016 presidential campaign of Mimi Soltysik, who just put himself out there with, it was actually very tragic. He just passed away from cancer a couple days ago, and we're just collectively mourning him because he had this way of conveying information so that it was accessible to anyone. You don't have to have read all the theory in the world to understand the concepts he was conveying, which was, again, about letting people understand the message. We're not here to preach to people. But to tell them that whatever it is they're encountering, their obstacles and challenges and struggles at work, like it's not in your head, that's real, and we can do better. We all must do better. We must hold this country accountable for our history of white supremacy, of imperialism, of the way that we have inflicted so much suffering in the rest of the world for the endless wars for oil and everything else that the United States has no business sticking its nose and meddling with, and we all paid for that. How many untold billions or trillions of dollars have been dumped into these wars that do nothing for us, and then they turn around and tell us, no, you can't have this health care that will save your life. You can't have this higher education that will give you a fighting chance to get the career you really dream of. And which is the ultimate catch-22 when, oh, well, if you're poor, it's your own fault. Why didn't you go to school? Well, who can afford to do that and carry a lifetime of student debt around with them? It's a really circular, vicious cycle that doesn't need to be that way. And so, and that's what Mimi was so effective at conveying. He was just this absolutely compassionate and caring, but fierce advocate for justice. And it really resonated with me, struck a chord. And what I found when I joined the organization is that, of course, with anything, there's disagreements. The left is very sectarian. I don't think anyone will ever deny that. But I have never felt like I am fighting tooth and nail against my own party, against our own platform, against our own candidates who run under the banner of the Socialist Party, the way I feel just utterly defeated and enraged and just insulted by what I see every single day from the Democrats and their candidates, their leadership, their platform, which is not binding in any meaningful way, the meaningless symbolic gestures they have with Nancy Pelosi and her sarcastic clapping. That doesn't put food on anybody's table. That doesn't solve anybody's material conditions and or their food insecurity or their need for counseling or mental health assistance. And these are the realities of people's lives that we're a bunch of old rich white millionaires we're supposed to count on them to care. No, but absolutely not. That's why they nominate these really rich, out of touch, connected elites who the party just kind of coordinates and handpicks, and then, oh, well, you don't like it? Well, you're why Trump won. And no, that's just, who wants to hear that? Who wants to be told, well, we didn't care about anything you wanted, but you owe us your vote? No, these politicians work for us. They're supposed to represent us and fight for us, not the other way around. But really, electoralism isn't always the end all and be all either. I think there are lower level races where that can be really valuable and make more of a difference. But to throw all of the resources and energy and money into that could be a mistake once you realize that when a community works together to organize and take direct action and meet our own needs, whether that's somebody's going to be evicted or somebody is being harassed at their workplace or being prevented from unionizing, or what we're seeing right now, the police are murdering unarmed Black men. Well, we're going to go out and we're going to fight and stand against that. And that has drawn, it's resulted in more something approaching a meaningful result. It's not there yet, but people are just going out and protesting every damn day. And people have to stand up and take notice. You can't ignore it. It's amazing what happens when people unify in solidarity with all working class people. And that's not just working people. That includes everyone that has been recently unemployed and laid off and can't find work or is not allowed to work because of this pandemic that our government is not providing for us adequately. You got one check maybe a couple months ago, and then oops, you're on your own. And now they want to act surprised when people are pushing things over and protesting in the streets every night. This was inevitable. It was going to happen, and it was just a matter of what's going to be the tinder that lights it up. And so I just I feel more vindicated and more empowered by being part of a party that recognizes and acknowledges those systemic shortfalls, because we can't do anything within a party that doesn't even admit the problem is there and is constantly talking down to its base and saying you're the problem because you won't settle for less. I refuse to accept that messaging in my own life. I don't want that for anyone on any level, let alone their political affiliations. It doesn't meet anyone's needs other than in serving to further enrich moneyed interests who directly profit from the systems that we're trying to dismantle.
So as part of an alternative party, you're kind of on the front lines of this fight against this, the political duopoly of the Republicans and Democrats. Like, how do you think we'll be able to wrestle power away from them and help distribute it?
What I'm really hoping to see, at least with the presidential camp, it is an election year. And so what I like that I'm seeing right now that I have not seen in, at least as far as I can remember, is that what the Socialist Party is doing is engaging in very intentional left unity outreach with the Green Party. The Green Party is they have a really big focus on ballot access, and they're very effective at getting it. They are consistently the largest third party in terms of getting recognition and getting votes at the presidential level. So the Socialist Party has nominated Howie Hawkins, who has also just become the Green Party presumptive nominee. And so that, of course, can open the door to, if you get 5% of the vote, then you qualify for federal funding. And that's not even beginning to acknowledge how absurd it is that, you don't qualify to participate in these national debates, but Mike Bloomberg, the billionaire, just hopped in at the last second. Yeah, bring him in. Pull him up on stage and let him spew his insulting crap and sell caps that say I'm not socialist and I'm proud. It's so, I don't know if it could possibly be more obvious that the Democrats are complicit in this. They allow a person like that to run under their banner, to stand next to their other candidates. It's just, how much more can people take? I feel like we're reaching a tipping point with the economic strain on the country, the uprisings that are happening nationwide in every single state, and at least there's an effort for left unity happening, and that's what needs to happen. The Democrats and Republicans, as awful as they are good at I should say two things: making money and making sure that they browbeat all of their followers into voting for them. At the end of the day, I would like to see a party that comes forward and says, we're going to give you something to vote for affirmatively, and feel proud of your vote, regardless of the outcome. It's not a win if you don't get anything that helps you. So that's what I'm hoping, that there will be an opening there, like a way that has been unprecedented in other recent presidential elections.
Yeah, we definitely have such a very narrow idea of, what do they call it, the Overton window or whatever, just when they present, the corporate media presents Bernie Sanders as the most left possible person in a reasonable debate. And more people, I think, are realizing that's not true.
Right. And not only, so Bernie Sanders, even though, in the context of the rest of the world and the history of left politics, he wouldn't be considered Karl Marx by any means, but he is still the most popular politician in the United States. He's run 2 presidential campaigns now, and they both failed. And if that doesn't tell people that they truly have no influence at all at what happens in the upper echelon of those parties, I don't know what else will. What could he have done differently? He kissed every ring. He signed the loyalty pledge. It's so, I feel like they enjoy kind of having him as their whipping boy and blaming him. You made Hillary lose, even though he campaigned for her in states where she never even visited. And, there's nothing he will ever do to atone for his sins. And he's not a real Democrat, whatever that means. So the experiment has failed. If anyone was going to have a left takeover, or even like approaching left, within, the entryist approach that everyone says, we're going to do it from within, it was going to be him. And like, there's not going to be a third run. There's just no way. That dream is over. So I felt like at 2016, people were like, oh, okay, but there's next time, and hindsight's 2020. No, this is the same party we're dealing with, and we've already seen they're ruthless. They'll change their whole platform. They'll create bylaws. They will make up loopholes on the fly, do whatever it takes to exclude not only Bernie Sanders, but anybody that's just, not in their favor. You're not the chosen one. You have not been selected to even be controlled opposition. They use him to tell people to go vote for Biden. And no, people are fed up with that. Biden is just nauseating in so many ways. And even though Bernie is popular, we're not beholden to what Bernie says. People are free to make their own choices and look and see that there is a left in this country. It's suppressed. It's not like when we had, even back in Eugene Debs' days where he got 1 million votes in prison. That's about as big of a success as the Socialist Party has had. And now, if you get a few thousand votes as a third-party candidate, you're doing pretty good. But we need to change that. And people, I think, they're more connected to information than they've ever been. They can fact check on the fly. They can learn and decide for themselves. We're all adults, and we don't need to be spoon-fed what to do by CNN or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or any of these people who are so far removed from the average person's struggle and just don't care what happens to us.
Are there any local issues or candidates you're really focused on right now?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the campaign of our Puget Sound Socialist Party member, Johnny Mead. He is running for Washington State Rep in LD 22, position 1. And so he's going to be on the ballot in August in the primary. And so because of his campaign, people will be able to vote for Socialist when that primary comes up. Up until he decided to throw his hat in the ring, that wasn't an option. The others that were running were a Libertarian, a Republican, and a Democrat. And I feel like what the answers that they're proposing for our region and for working class people in general are just the same, the same old song and dance that we're all very familiar with. Well, just give all the money to the rich people and tax working class people until they bleed, and somehow that will be great for me because I think I'm going to be one of the billionaires with my boots on people's necks one day. And so that's not something that really resonates with me or with people who are increasingly becoming receptive to socialism and wanting to learn more about it and see it reflected even in their communities in an elected office. I think one way to frame it is to say, okay, we've tried Democrats and Republicans. They've had their shot. Would it hurt so much to elect one socialist person and just see what they can do? And look at what has happened with Kashama Swant in Seattle. She has been able to be a leader and a voice for socialism. And it's hard to find anywhere to align when you're just one person. But we have to start somewhere. And so Johnny is he's running as part of our party, and I definitely support him. And I encourage anybody to check him out if you live in the area. His website's johnnyforwa.com, and we encourage people to join the Discord and propose their suggestions and questions and ideas about our policies and so that because we want people to be able to feel heard and feel like they can have an impact on somebody who is saying, I want to represent you. Well, that needs to mean something. There needs to be a dialogue there, not just one person saying, well, this is what you're going to get. And if you don't like it, then go kick rocks, which is kind of the Biden approach. If you don't like it, go vote for Trump. No, if you don't like it, let's do better. Let's work together. Tell us what is going on with your family, with your workplace, with your region, and how can we fix that? That's what that dialogue needs to be, or people have no business calling themselves a public servant.
And how can people get involved with the party?
So if they are interested in joining the Puget Sound Socialist Party, we have at the national website, the Socialist Party USA website, there's a join section where it tells them all about membership, and they would sign up through there. And then our national secretary would forward that information to me if that person lives in a region that is covered in our jurisdiction. And then we can vote to confirm their membership, and then they would become a member of the party. And as such, they can join into our general meetings, and which are usually open to the public, and our special meetings where we have discussions about things like our campaign strategy or events coming up that we want to participate in. How are we going to plan something for May Day is one thing that we've done in the past. So basically they will be part of our circle and be able to have that direct impact on whatever it is that we're trying to do in our region. We like to have people that are located in various places, so you don't have to be like, oh, I happen to be in Tumwater, but I appreciate our members in Tacoma and Seattle and people located on the ground in areas where things are happening, because we want to be in touch with what's going on around our state. So, and there's different membership options for people regardless of income, so you don't have to worry about that. Basically, we just really want to give people that opportunity to feel like, we are an actual party. You can run as a member of a socialist party if you like, and we will support you. The National will support you. And you don't have to feel like the Democratic Party is the only avenue through which you can be politically active and involved in your region. So definitely anybody is welcome to reach out through the Puget Sound Socialist Party website as well. If they have any questions for me, and lots of times I'll have a conversation with people and just try and tell them whatever I can. So if they have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address those for them.
And if people want to learn more, where should they go? I think, did you say that there was a podcast?
Oh, yeah. So we have a few different resources where people can learn more about what we're up to. We have the Puget Sound Socialist Party Facebook page, which is pretty active, and we share a lot about things going on in our region on there. We also have a Twitter, and we have a podcast called Socialism Train, which also has its own Twitter. And we record various episodes with some of our members talking about basically current events and relevant topics through the perspective of a class critique, and about how socialism affects our daily lives and these events that we're seeing unfold, like in this very historical moment. So those are all good ways to kind of like, depending on your preference, to be able to consume things in the format you prefer. And and they can also message through the Facebook page if they like, and get a response that way. So hopefully there's lots of different avenues so that people can access them regardless of what social media they might be using or not.
Try to have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today and coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you today. You've been listening to Talk to Seattle, and I have been your host, Jason Rigdon.
like always, if you want to support the show, would you please tell a friend about it? You could share it on social media or Facebook, or maybe even make an Instagram post, but we really depend on that word of mouth advertising. We don't have a real advertising budget. We're just a little podcast. So anything you can do to help support the show in that way will be much appreciated. Thank you so much for listening.